Let's get straight into it then, mate. World Championships preview. We're just going to preview a few different events, ones that we're looking forward to seeing ourselves, the ones that we know that the majority of the track and field fan base are also looking forward to. But if we do miss an event or we don't mention an athlete that you maybe think was worthy of a mention, don't lose your In terms of the field event, I am super excited for the women's heptathlon. Reason being is because obviously American Anna Hall has just been an absolute phenomenon this season. I think that she's so talented at some of the individual events. I mean, we've seen her in the Diamond League, in the individual event. She's a superb 800-meter athlete. She's a superb 400-meter athlete as well. I think that she's one of those athletes that could literally do whatever she would like. And, you know, that's probably why she does the heptathlon, because she's so bloody talented. But she is one that I really think is going to be hard to beat. Obviously, with Nafi Tiam, who's out with injury, two-time Olympian and two-time world champ, she's done. She's crocked. I think, like, you know, it's kind of sort of set for Anna Hall to take that title. But are there any elements of the women's heptathlon that you're looking forward to seeing, Alfie?
Difficulty with the multi-events, the heptathlon and decathlon, is you can just foul and not do a long jump and then your competition's ruined. So there is that aspect of it, which always makes it a bit more exciting, as well as the very intensive schedule. I guess it leads to a higher likelihood of injury. So even though it seems like dead set for Anna Hall to win, potentially trying to attack that world record, definitely get over 7,000 points. What challenges crops up along the way? I think she'll be competing against herself and managing herself and her injuries, and also how aggressive she is, especially in the long jump where you can get loads of fouls and then your competition is ruined. So I don't think she's competing against anyone. If she performs well, she wins. And it's just about how she combats the fatigue and each event individually.
Sticking with the field, I'm going to move over to the men's pole vault. Obviously, Mondo Duplantis is a name that just rings around every conversation when we talk about track generally, but he is so hard to beat. The Swede has been just on an absolute warpath this year. I don't know how many times he's gone over 6 meters, but I want to say that I'm going to see if I can find it on the internet quickly, but I want to say that it's near on 50 times. Whilst he's going to have competition from, you know, athletes like Curtis Marshall from Australia and Chris Nielsen, you know, the American, but he's so far clear. Can you really see him taking a loss on the day?
No. And if I was betting on the event, I would obviously bet him to be one of the favourites, one of the clear-cut favourites out of the whole of the World Championships, not just in the pole vault. But he did lose his previous competition at the Diamond League, so he can have an off day, and most of the time his off day is enough to win anyway. But if it's an extreme off day whilst others are performing well, then that's a day where you could maybe get the balances turn a bit. He doesn't perform very well in poor conditions, so that's another thing. Maybe if it's really windy or rainy. Don't think it is on the weather. It looks pretty hot most days. So, I mean, you'd be stupid not to think he's going to win, and you'd be stupid not to think he might be able to get the world record. But he did lose this season, which is crazy that we're saying he lost once. I think he came second.
He did.
So it's like, if that's what it takes for us to even consider him getting beat, I think Mondo will win. It's just, if he has a really bad day, anything can happen.
Now we are really struggling in this preview to talk about the Brits, because unfortunately the standard of this, obviously it's World Championships, you expect the standard to be high, but Great Britain don't have the biggest team in this championships, and unfortunately that means that few and far between are going to feature in this preview. But one country that is going to feature quite a lot in the preview is obviously United States of America. In the men's shot put, last year, they had the full sweep of the podium. Ryan Krauser, Joe Kovacs, and Josh Awatunde took the podium, full sweep, and they're back again for the World Champs this time around. So realistically, those three are going to be heavy hitters right at the front, and it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, whether anyone can take down Ryan Krauser. Spoke to him at the Diamond League in London after his win there, and a very friendly man, obviously very intimidating stature. He's massive, but he was one of the friendliest guys that I spoke to on the day. And it's going to be interesting to see whether they can, repeat that feat of a full sweep on the podium. They also have another US talent in Tom Walsh, who's also an incredible thrower in the shot put as well. I mean, where are America getting all these shot putters from? It's absolutely insane. Do these guys just grow up and just start throwing shots around in the garden? We're going to start in the sprints. No better place to start than one of the highlight events of any championship in the 100 meters. We're going to preview both the men's and the women's. On the men's side, obviously there's so many athletes that can, really have a shot at the 100 meters. When there's 8 in a final, any one of 8 can win it, and sometimes you can have a surprise, but you can't really overlook some of the big hitters that we see on the Diamond League circuit regularly. We've got reigning champion Fred Kerley, who is probably the favourite going into Budapest, but he has lost a couple of times on the trot. He lost in Poland in the Diamond League in the 100 meters, and then he also came 4th in the 200 at the US Championships. But I don't know whether you saw that 200 meters at the US Championships, but he just looked disengaged and didn't really look arsed, to be honest. But he's run 9.88 this season. He's a freak talent. He's incredible. And if there's one guy that can get himself up for the champs, it's Fred Kerley. And then my other shouts are, you obviously have Noah Lyles, who is obviously, what big fan. We're obviously big fans of him. We met him at the London Diamond League. It's going to be, I think, quite interested to see how he approaches the 100 meters, because obviously he loves the 200. He's been an absolute demon over the 200 this year. And how, I don't know whether, I'm not a sprinter. I don't know whether they do this, but do they prioritize the 200? Do they overlook the 100 and just think, look, I'll run the 100 hard, but if it doesn't go so well, then I won't lose too much sleep over it because I've got the 200. So I'm interested to see how Noah goes. And then from a British perspective, Zarnell Hughes, obviously he's been on an absolute flyer this summer. He's broken British records in the 100 and the 200, and he's taken obviously massive chunks off his PB as well. So they're my 3 to watch out for in the men's 100. Are there any that you're looking forward to seeing, Alfie, or anyone within that pack that you're touting for maybe a medal?
So other than who you said, Oman Lara, I can't even say his name, the Kenyan athlete, Oman Yala, he has taken down Fred Kerley this year. So even though I think Fred is the favourite, I think it's kind of a favourite in the sense of just because he won so much earlier on in the season and is the defending champion. But he's definitely vulnerable, as we've seen. He has been beaten quite a few times in the 1 and the 2 this season. So I predict. I think last year we got a clean sweep from the US in the men's 100, and I feel like this time it's going to be 3 different countries that are on the podium. I would like to see Zarnell Hughes on there as well, and I don't think Noah Lyles has the opening 40 meters in him to be able to get a medal in the 100 when everyone's running like low 8s, which usually suggests you're going to run like 9.7 in the final. So can he run 9.7 when he starts not as great as it should be for the 100? Probably not. And then you've also got Marcel Jacobs, the Olympic champion, who has probably had too many injuries this year to actually challenge, but he is the Olympic champion, so you can't really rule him out.
If anything, the women's 100 meters this year has been the one event that's been equally exciting in terms of head-to-heads and big rivalries, but it's been a lot faster on the clock. The men's races have been exciting because there's big names going up against each other, but often this season the time has disappointed us a little bit, which we shouldn't be too ungrateful. We're seeing, superstars come together, but on the women's side of things, it's been a rapid year on the clock. And, for me, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, the defending champion, she's going for a 6th world title in the 100. She's missed a lot of the season with some injuries and some setbacks, but she's already set back-to-back 10.8 victories last month. So any sort of worries about her shape, fitness, her body holding together, I wouldn't even worry about her. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, she never does the championships unless she's absolutely flying. And for me, I would love to see her do it again. But one pip for me, before I dominate the entire preview once again, I'm going to let you go through it, Alfie, is Sha'Carri Richardson. I am a massive fan of Sha'Carri Richardson. I think, don't get me wrong, she doesn't always get it right on and off the track, but she's great for the sport, and she's flying this year. She's absolutely flying. And I just think she's that athlete. If she has the bit between her teeth and she gets that start, I don't know. What do you reckon?
Yeah, her top end speed, when she seems bothered anyway, because sometimes she races and you can tell she doesn't want to be there, but her top end speed is insane. I've not seen anything like it. The way she kind of floats the last 30 meters is phenomenal. So if she gets a good start, and that's a big if, because we've seen it again where sometimes she gets left behind a bit. But yeah, she does seem on it, and I think she's a different athlete this year as she has been in the previous years. Hasn't had as much controversy around her name as she did last year and the year before. And I do think it would be good for the sport if she does win, because it's a massive name and it would do a lot of numbers in terms of headlines, which it probably wouldn't be my top pick to win in terms of if I could choose who I wanted to win. I think I'm in the same boat as you. I'd want that to be Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, or I guess I'd say Dina Asher-Smith. But I feel like the top three at the minute in terms of who can medal would be Sharika Jackson, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, and Sha'Carri Richardson. However, Toulouse has been running phenomenal. She won the London Diamond League, if I'm not mistaken. And when she gets it again on her day, she is very hard to beat. So it'll take a combination of things for any one of those athletes to win. They'd have to perform well, whilst others maybe don't perform as well. But I think this is probably one of the most closely contested races in the whole of the World Championships, just because of how many people are there. But Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce only 10.82 this season compared to Sharika Jackson's 10.65 and Sha'Carri Richardson's wind legal 10.71. So it's quite a big gap there.
Alfie, men's 200. What are you saying? Erin Knighton, Tebogo, Noah Lyles. Which order?
Lyles, Hughes, Tebogo. It's just nice to back a British runner, isn't it? It's probably delusion, even though he has been running well, but to count out Knighton and Tebogo who are faster than him. I see Tebogo racing well. He's on an absolute charge. I haven't really seen much of Knighton this season. So, Lyles has to be first. I think his confidence is supreme. The way he's racing at the minute is supreme. The only way I see him not winning is if he gets injured, which is a possibility in the 200. And doubling it with the 100. It's an intense double to do. But I honestly see Lyles getting close to the world record, maybe beating it at some point. Maybe not this year, but even if it's in the 19.2s, I think that's one of the benefits of doing the 100 as well, especially for Lyles, is it's just practice, like sprint practice. I think I saw Michael Johnson saying this, and I'm going to take his word for it. It's like sometimes those heats really get you up to speed for the final, and you can really perform when it matters. And I think that's what Lyles is best at. So I see Lyles winning. Knighton and Tebogo, they're still both young. We've seen it in championships before. Sometimes they might not perform the best on the final day. So Hughes, but other than those four, I don't really see anyone else contending for the medals.
In terms of the sticks in the hurdles, the 4 hurdles, Alfie, Karsten Warholm of Norway is basically just going to try and break the world record and hope that no one runs faster. That generally tends to be his way of racing. He's looked insane this season. He's run his 2 fastest non-championship times ever, 46.51, 46.52 in Oslo and Monaco. Dos Santos from Brazil is the Brazilian. He's the world champion. He is coming back from injury as well. So I don't see anyone beating Karsten Warholm, but stranger things have happened. Do you think Warholm runs away with it? Do you think he breaks the world record? Or do you think something different?
I think he runs away with it. The world record seems so impossibly fast. It's hard to predict that that's going to happen. But like you said, he has run his fastest ever non-championship races this season. And we do know he comes alive in championship races. So I wouldn't doubt it. But that world record's so fast. No, I don't think anyone would have ever thought it would get down to that speed prior to him breaking it. Same with the women's 400 hurdles record.
And then the women's 400 meter hurdles, Femke Bol, clear winner. She's won 8 times on the trot, dating back to last summer. And obviously with Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, she's out. She's got a knee injury. Do you know what's really annoying about a knee injury? It's like a minor knee injury. Just call it a knee injury. Like the fact that you put the word minor in front of it, and then every single article that I've read on it has cited the fact that it's a minor knee injury, just makes it sound like, well, you could have run then. But each their own. I get that, she's looking after her body. But yeah, back to Femke Bol, Alfie. She's going to probably win by about 3 hurdles, right?
In London, she was phenomenal. She's a different runner to what she was last year. It's actually a shame that Sydney isn't racing in the 4 hurdles. I know that was never the plan, even originally, because she was in the 400 flat. But it'd be nice to see a fully fit Sydney go up against a new and improved Fenkabol to see who came out on top, because I think it'd be much more of a challenge for Sydney than it was in previous years.
I'm going to let you head this up. Let's talk about the distance. Do you want to kick things off? Our World Athletics Champs preview in the distance events.
So the men's 800, first of all, I have absolutely no clue who is going to win the men's 800. I think about 15 people can probably medal. It is 15 runners who can medal. I'd like to say Bergen, Rowden and Patterson are going to get first, second, and third, which actually in the men's 800 is a possibility. They can all individually medal. It's the case of there's only 8 people in the final. 800 is a very, very tactical mess of event. And as we've seen in the men's 800 for the last few years, no one ever seems to stay on top for very long. So definitely, if you're a betting person, this is one I wouldn't put a bet on because it's so impossible to call. The women's 800 meters is a little bit more simple. And let's just assume that Uffingmo isn't racing again, which pretty certain she won't be.
Do we definitely know that she's pulled out yet? What's the crack with that?
So the crack with it is that obviously her training partner has pulled out, and also her coach has said she'll either be going on vacation or going to Budapest. However, in recent days, I've seen every single other media outlet not include her in their predictions, and I've also seen loads of comments not including her predictions. So I'm not sure if we're missing something of a confirmation. Maybe we are, but I think it's fair to say that she won't be competing, unless this is all a massive mind game and she is going to compete. But it definitely seems like she isn't, with McLaughlin choosing not to compete. I'm sure Uffingmo, who is her training partner and is coached by the same coach, will probably do the same. So let's just say she's not. That leaves Mary Moore versus Keely Hodgkinson as a very, very good matchup. And why I think this is more exciting than some of the other events is the fact that it's a head-to-head. Like, there's obviously external runners who have a chance, but it's really those two up against each other, and they've got a long history. I think going into it, Mora might edge as the favourite because of a head-to-head record against Keely. She did beat her at the Commonwealth Games, and she also did beat her at the last Diamond League. Honestly, would be one of my picks for one of the most exciting races of the entire championships, especially in the distance events.
I want you to give me your top 3 prediction for the men's and women's 800. And I know how hard that is, especially for the men's, because there's about 50 athletes that could medal, but just lay it out on the table.
Right, I'm going to go with... This is where biasness... I'm really not trying to be biased. Okay. I am going to go with Mary Mora first, Keely Hodgkinson second, and then Natoya Gould. I believe she has also married now, so I'm not entirely sure of her full name, but Natoya Gould in third. And then on the men's side, I'm going to say Marco Arop first, Max Bergen second, Ben Patterson third.
On the women's side, I'm going to go Mora for gold, Keely for silver, Gemma Reekie for bronze. I think that Mora has Keely's number in her head in a championship final. And I think Gemma Reekie is running very, very well. And I think that she could shock a few. And in the men's race, this is so hard. Oh my God. I think Max Bergen will take the gold. I think that Arop will take silver. And I think that Ben Patterson will take third, bronze. The other athletes, so many. 2 Algerians in Muller and Sajati, French duo of Tual and Robert, Australians of Joseph Deng, Peter Bowl, Arop, 3 Kenyans, Christ alive. You've got the 3 Kenyans, Wanyonyi, Korea, and Kinyamal, and then also the 2 Americans, Clayton Murphy and Bryce Hoppel. Like, just that alone, any one of those people could take that win. So rather than overthink it, I've just laid my cards on the table. Let's not spend too much more time on the 2 lappers. Alfie, do you want to kick things off with the metric mile in the 1500?
Yeah, okay. So I have wrote a massive paragraph in my preparation notes for this 1500 meters and the 5000 for that matter. Let's go with the obvious one first. Let's just start with the women's 1500 meters. I think that's already Faith Kipyegon's gold. So I don't think there's anything more needs to be said on that. It's more of a conversation about who comes second and third and how fast they run. Second and third, kind of like the men's 800, there's so many runners who kind of feature in that 3:54 to 4 minutes range where, depending on how Faith Kipyegon runs, it's who follows that. Because if she runs fast from the gun, are people going to... I'd predict people like Laura Muir to follow Faith Kipyegon for as long as possible and then probably hold on for a medal. Or do they just not follow Faith at all? Or does Faith just wait and outkick everyone, which we know she's capable of doing as well? So I think it really depends on how Faith races with what happens behind her.
Yeah.
It is probably Laura Muir's silver to lose, I think, just because of how good she is at championship races. I know she did lose at the British Champs against Snowden, but I can't overlook Laura Muir for a medal on the world stage. I'm not sure what you feel about that because, she did lose at the championships, which isn't generally a good sign going forward. But
my personal predictions are Kipyegon takes the gold. I think that Lyndon Hall is running really well from Australia. She is running super strong at the moment, as is Jessica Carl. And I think those two are going to be very close to the podium. And then Nikki Hiltz, they've been running superbly well as well this season. I think Nikki Hiltz makes the podium. I think Nikki Hiltz will take the bronze, and it's between Jessica Hull and Lyndon Hill for silver for me. I think Jess Hull takes that. I don't think Laura Muir will win a medal, unfortunately. I don't think Sifan Hassan will feature in the podium. I just don't think she has that closing speed that she once had. I mean, she is also tripling, doing the 1,500, the 5,000 and the 10,000. So we can allow her to not make the podium, but I'm probably going to eat my bloody words because this is Sifan Hassan at the end of the day. So yeah, women's, I'm going to go Kipyegon for the gold, Jess Hull for silver, Nikki Hiltz for third.
I guess we also are missing the Ethiopians. Mashesha, second fastest in the world this year, 3:54. And then Hylam, who was also running 3:54 this season, whose birthday is the 6th of January, 2006. So she's a massive talent that we're going to take the next decade talking about. But yeah, Nikki Hiltz won the women's championships against Uffing Mo, so I think they have a very good shot of medaling. And then also, like you said, Lyndon Hall, Jessica Hall, running phenomenal from Australia at the minute. The men's 15, I do have Jakob Ingebrigtsen as the favourite, obviously. He's one of the fastest ever, I think 4th fastest ever now. Likes to run from the front, and as Let's Run always love to say, that means he's vulnerable at a championship race because he runs from the front. There's no pacers, so that opening lap he's going to get a bit more fatigued than if he was running behind a pacemaker, which is obviously true. However, there is also runners in this race who also like to lead from the front, like Narve Nordas. So will Nordas want his best chances of winning the medal by making it fast as well from the start? I think so. So even though they're not training partners, could we see the two Norwegians trying to push the race at the front together? Maybe both come away with a medal. It's definitely not going to be slow. So this is where, in a hypothetical dream world where for some reason it is slow, I think people like Matt Stonia, Cole Hocker and Niels Loras have a big chance of doing much better than in a very fast race. Niels Loras closed the Euro under 20 1,500 metre championships in a 1:46 last 800 metres. Maybe 1:45, so that's ridiculous. So if it's a slow race, he's there. But again, it's really not going to be a slow race. So I think Jakob, he's undefeated this year in the 15. Surely he's got to be first pick. And then other than that, I would say it's probably Jan Negusas and Neil Gawley's to lose. I think Gawley, if he gets it tactically right, which he hasn't done a lot this season, then he could definitely get a medal, maybe even challenge for the gold, because in indoors he was second behind Jakob. He's a tall guy, Niels, who doesn't suit indoors, and he managed to hold on to Jakob for a long time, and he has been finishing very fast. It's just he's not really been positioned very well in the middle of the race. Mokatir is obviously the second fastest this year, but he lost to Machal in the Spanish Championships, so I don't know how that looks for him, because Machal's, no offense to Machal, he's getting on quite a bit, and to lose to Machal in a kick as well, I don't really see how that suits Mokatir going into the championships. And then Narve Nordas as well got a very big medal shot as well.
Yeah, I think two Norwegians make the podium. I think Jakob takes the gold. I don't think it'll be 1-2. I think Narve Nordas could potentially I'm not saying he could lose the gold, because there's a difference between going neck and neck with Jakob and beating Jakob. But if he gets caught into that mindset of, oh my God, it's Jakob, Skurt's son, I might be able to beat him, I'm going to be the king of Norway, that could cost him the gold kind of thing. But I think Jakob will take the win. I think Nordas will be third, and then second, I think it will either be Timothy Chariot or Yared Naguse. 5K. Do you want to start off with the women's?
Yeah, I've written down here, I still think it's Faith Kipyegon's to lose. It is a bit more challenging than the 15, because when she did break the 5K world record, I believe she did get dropped a tiny bit with a few laps to go. It was never a big enough gap to worry about, but she wasn't exactly behind Gidai all the way, which is irrelevant because she did win. But if you have the likes of Hassan and maybe some other runners around her pushing Gidai, could they get a gap on Kipyegon to try and run away? Because we know Kipyegon's going to win in the kick. Gidai can finish fast, but Kipyegon will always win in their kick, regardless of whatever race. Like, she closed the world record in sub 60, and she's already running at world record 5K pace. So Faith Kipyegon's to lose, but I do think there is a lot more runners who can challenge and push the pace on. I'd love Monson to medal, but as we saw in the Diamond League, the London Diamond League, the women's 5,000 is phenomenal at the minute. You've got people running 14 zeros, 14 lows. You're gonna have to shatter your personal best to be in with a shout. So it depends on how much energy the likes of Chebet, Hassan, Tsegay, Gidai, and Tay use in trying to break Kipyegon. Or they might just settle for second and it might be a slow and tactical race. We don't know. But I can't see Kipyegon losing. I think she's a phenomenal runner. And I think if she does get the double, it will be the greatest season by any runner ever. I think that's probably fair to say. Or at least distance runner. I guess you could talk about Bolt in his early days. But
Hassan had a pretty good season when she tripled. She won 3 medals.
Yeah, I guess she did. And maybe Kipyegon could next year try the 15, 10 and 5 triple. But just with her world records.
Sifan Hassan, Gidai and Tsegay are going to be coming back from the 10,000 for the 5,000. Kipyegon will have run the 1,500. And then Beatrice Chebet, world cross-country champion from Kenya, is going to be fresh-legged. Realistically, when she broke that world record, I think she ran a 60 last lap, 59 high lap last lap, like frightening. She runs a 60 lap with her eyes shut. She will run, if it's 14.05 to 14.10 pace, she will run a 60. If it's 14.15 to 14.25, mate, she's running 57, 58 last lap. Like, no one is going to be able to run a faster last lap than that under those circumstances. If Kipyegon runs a 60 off 14.05 pace, this is bearing in mind, this is me saying that it's at world record pace, which is probably unlikely, but who knows. Hassan might be able to run a 62. Gidai might be able to run like a 61 high, but I just don't think any of them are going to be able to beat Kipyegon. But what are your thoughts on Hassan coming back from that 10,000? Let's say the 10K goes well. What do you reckon?
I mean, I love Hassan. I want to start that by saying Hassan is one of my favourite runners. But I don't see how it's feasible with the way the women's 5,000 is at the minute and how London went for Hassan, where she did take the pace on and it was, not perfect conditions. They still run very fast. I don't see how she recovers from the 10 and then races the 5. And because let's not forget, she's ran a marathon now. She shouldn't have the same closing speed as when she ran a 156, 800 meters. So I don't think she can double in both in terms of as successful as she likes. But I guess that's maybe too focused on the medals, because if she still comes 4th or 5th in that women's 5K after doing well on the 10K, that's still an absolute phenomenal performance. But obviously no one really cares about that. They only care about the medals. And I don't think it's possible that she medals in both. I'd love to be wrong. I'd absolutely love to be wrong. But it seems like a very, very challenging ask, especially with how good people are running at the minute.
Yeah, so give me your top 3 prediction. The women's 5,000.
Kipyegon, Gidai, and Tsegay.
All right, men's 5K. Let's kick things off for men's 5K.
I think Jakob is going to win.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Big shout. Okay.
Because, let's be honest, right? We've seen people run 12:41, some of the fastest times ever this year from Kiplimo was not racing, Aragari, Kajelcha, Bikili. loads of people ran fast. As the list goes on, and so Jakob needs to be in 12:40 shape and then a kick to win. Or maybe 12:30 shape, but there's probably a lot of runners, around the ballpark of Cheptegei's world record if they actually had an official attempt. But we forget, I think a lot of people forget, Jakob 2 years ago ran 12:48 when he was so much younger, and think of how much he's progressed since then. And he also did win the Worlds last year very comfortably. Like, he absolutely put everyone to bed last year at the Worlds. And that was an extremely hot race where you'd like to think the Africans would be a bit more suited because of the heat, and Jakob still completely destroyed them all. So if they decide to... It's the same again. It's the same story where will they settle for second and third, which we saw a lot against Mo Farah, where no one wanted to risk it and then played right into his hands, which would be to... Here's a kick for Mo Farah. The difference between Farah and Jakob is Jakob has a faster 15, and also Jakob can wind it up. And that's what we've seen this year in the 5K. They've wound it up. So they've started off in like 62s and then got down to 60s, 61s, closing in a fast last mile. Who else can do that better other than Jakob? So their style of racing this year, when they've ran really quick, Jakob is probably the best in the world at it. So if he's in shape, I don't see him getting beaten, especially with that 2-mile world record earlier on in the season. He's definitely got the endurance for it as well. And let's not forget that 2-mile world record, he ran the second fastest 3K in history ever in that 2-mile race. And none of those athletes have got close to that 3K time. I don't think anyone thought Jakob was going to run so fast over the 2 miles as well. So I think he's in 12:20 something 5K shape if he did a world record attempt. So I don't see him getting beaten. With the 12:40 times we've seen are phenomenal, but I think that's because Jakob hasn't been racing a 5K, and that's why they seem so good.
Only things to consider, because I'm not saying Jakob's not going to win. I also think he will take the gold, but he hasn't run a 5K this season. So it's almost like if it was anyone else, then you'd take that as a consideration. But Jakob, don't mean. But Josh Cheptegei, obviously world record holder. It's crazy that we're like, can he medal? Maybe he's a world record holder. But the world record was done, a little while ago under very wrapped in cotton wool circumstances. This is a championship race. This is set up for the kickers and the athletes that can wind it up. But I think my top three: Jakob for the gold, Mo Katir for the silver, and I think Joshua Cheptegei will take the bronze. What's your predictions on the podium, Alfie?
I'm going to go with Jakob for gold, Katir for silver, and you know what? Let's just be different. I'm going to go for Bikili for third. One. Oh, nice. Gebriwet though.
2 more events to preview: men's 10,000, women's 10,000. Joshua Cheptegei is looking to, emulate his name in history as some of the greats have over the years. As I say, he's stepping up to the marathon later this year in Valencia. So this is his last championships on the track, where we're likely to see him either at all or very certainly doubling, unless he's going to do a Sifan Hassan. So he's going to be one of the athletes who is going to be very hard to beat. Obviously, he's going to have no company from Jacob Kiplimo, his countryman from Uganda, who's pulled out with a hamstring injury. That was his biggest challenge to take the title there. He's lost to Kiplimo before. So now it's going to be, realistically, he's going to be up against the Ethiopians in Aragawi and Barega. I feel like Barega's been around since me and Alfie were in nappies. He is just an absolute stalwart athlete to be right up there with 400 meters left to go. We've got Barega Aragawi from Ethiopia. We also have the Kenyan Nicholas Kipkorir, shall I say? Because you see what, years gone by in the distance races, especially the 10,000, because obviously it's the longest race on the track, you always see the Africans generally use team tactics. So you see Ethiopians will gang up against the Kenyans and then obviously now this influx of Ugandans that have come in as well. So it's going to be interesting to see whether there's any of that going on. 2 names that I want to throw into the mix, and I think there's going to be a shock in the distance races. I don't know which event it's going to fall in. Let's disregard the 8 and the 15. I mean the long distance races. So in the 5 and the 10K, I think there's going to be a shock. And I think that in the 10,000, that could come from either Woody Kincaid, the American, or the Canadian Mo Ahmed. Mo Ahmed has got a really good record in championship finals, especially globally. But Woody Kincaid, if he's there, we know how fast he finishes. And I think if they start messing around at the front and the team tactics come into it and they start knocking off slower last laps coming into the last mile, Woody Kincaid is sat there licking his lips because that boy can close.
He can, but I personally think Aragari, Barega, and Cheptegei are just going to absolutely demolish everyone. Just
what a contrasting opinion.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be bothered to. Aragari is such a front runner. I don't think they're going to care. I just think they're going to be like, "See you later, everyone. If you want to run 26:20, feel free to come with me. If not, enjoy your 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th places." But yeah, you're right. If any world, it's a slower race, which it's hot, very hot actually in Hungary. So can that make a difference in a fast race over a 10K? Absolutely. If it's extremely hot, then it's going to be hard to front run a 10K in that sort of pace. So that's where I think Kincaid and people like that come into the conversation. But I really don't see that happening. I think a gap will appear, and I don't think it'll be a kicker's race. I think it'll be the strength that comes out on top in this scenario. And I think, do you know what? I'll give it Cheptegei. You said he had one last hurrah. I'd like to see him win another medal on the track. So it's weird to say one last hurrah because I'm pretty sure he's only 25. But yeah, he'll be moving up to the road. So Cheptegei first, Aragari second, and Barega third. Probably my pick. I think it will be a fast race.
And women's 10,000 Alfie, we obviously have Sifan Hassan. That's probably her strongest chance to win because it's early on in her competition. It'll be her second race of the championships. She runs a 1,500 meter heat on day one of her championships, and then she runs the 10,000 meters at night. So she has quite a lot of gap in between those two events, and that 1,500 meter heat should be relatively easy going for her. So she should be pretty fresh for the 10,000. She also has to go up against Gidai and Tsegay as well, as she will do in the 5,000. I think it's going to be those three that are out in front, and I think it's going to come down to one of those that wins it. For me, I don't know. What do you think, Alfie? It's so hard to call, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Gidai might be the favourite because I think she did close last year's 10,000 metre World Championships in a 2:40 last kilometre, which is mind-blowing. I think the last lap was a 60-second last lap, so ridiculously fast. And I don't know if we're being sceptical about Hassan because of a marathon running and maybe, how many races she is doing. Because like you said, the 10K, she should be a bit fresher. It's just, can she close in a 60 is the question. I know that last year her coach said she had kind of like a down year, so that's why we didn't really see her perform well at championships. So that's another thing. So maybe we're recency bias is favouring the other athletes for me, but Hassan, when she's at her best, is also near unbeatable. So I think it will be close. I think the 4 potential medal shouts are Tsegay, Gidai, Hassan, and Tay. It's just whatever order they're in. I don't know. It'll definitely be a fast race again. And maybe there's a distinction between a hard race and a fast race because of how hot it is. But I do think it'll be a strung out race. And Hassan, with a marathon pedigree now, and especially coming back from all the setbacks she had in the marathon, I'll give it her as first, and I'll say Gidai second and Tsegay third. But then again, Tsegay has a lethal kick on her as well. The women's distance events at the minute are just so hard to call, other than Faith Piegon, because so many people are running ridiculously fast. So I think it'll be a bit of an interesting one, to be honest.
What do you think? What about Monson in the 10,000 meters, the American? I think that she's obviously run very fast. She's run an American record of the 5,000 this year. 10,000 is the longest race on the track. There's a lot more time for things to go wrong. Could she potentially have a chance coming down to 600, 500 meters to go if she gets a bit of a sniff of the podium?
I don't think so, unfortunately. I think the East Africans are way too strong at the minute. In London, Monson started to get dropped, I think, on the last lap, because that change of pace from the East Africans is unreal. If Monson's there with 200 to go, then maybe, but I don't think it'll get to that point because of how good they have been. And even if she's there with a lap to go, 500, 600 to go, their change of pace at the start of the lap, the Tsegay, Hassan, Tay, and Hailu, I can't see Monson staying on the back of them in the closing stages. As much as I'd love it to happen, I'd love to be wrong again. But I think the 10K is probably too much in the strength of these Africans to have anyone else challenging for a medal.
We have the steeplechase and the marathon to conclude this preview. The men's steeplechase, Alfie, this is a very, very hotly anticipated race because you've obviously got El Bakkali of Morocco. He's won a bronze and 2 golds. And then you've also got Ethiopian Germa, who's come runner-up 3 times. He's come runner-up 3 times. There we go, get my words out. Bakkali, he's 5-0 on Germa in their head-to-head, but this year, Germa's run 7:52, which is 4 seconds faster than El Bakkali's personal best. And I think that something's changed in Germa this year. That's not an accusation. That's not me throwing out accusations. But something has changed in that guy. He is a different beast this season. And could we potentially see a sub-8-minute championship final performance?
Yeah, I think both of them would be stupid not to make it a sub-8-minute race because then no one else can race with them. And I think Bakkali knows. I think it will be Germa taking the race on at the front. And I think Bakkali will know that he just has to go with Germa and then try and outkick him. But like you said, something has changed with Germa. He's got the indoor 3K world record. He's ran 3:29 in the 1500. So I think that'll be too much for Bakkali to handle. Then again, Bakkali has got the championship pedigree. He's also, a very fast 1500 meter runner. And I also think he's slightly better at hurdling. So off the final hurdle, are you going to see Bakkali really accelerate and maybe try and get the gap? I don't know what to call it. I think it is Germa's time to win, but how can you overlook Bakkali with all the success he's had?
And on the women's side, we have the women's steeplechase. It's been a little bit underwhelming this season in terms of they're not really being a clear-cut favourite going into it. You've obviously got Emma Coburn and Beatrice Chepkoech that are in the race. They're looking to run well this season. Chepkoech is obviously the world record holder for the women's steeplechase and obviously won the title in 2019. Emma Coburn won the title in 2017. This season, fastest two in the world this season are Sembo Almayu. We'll go with that. Sembo Almayu and Jacqueline Chepkoech from Ethiopia and Kenya, respectively. Both inside 20 years old. You've got Chepkoech, who's 19, and then Almayu is 18, which is incredible. But first question from me to you, Alfie. Is Emma Coburn a serious contender? I ask this because obviously she's carried the gauntlet for USA in the steeplechase for so many years now. She won the title in 2017. She didn't win the USA's this season, but she did run her fastest steeplechase in that. What's your thoughts on Coburn's chances going into this?
I think her chances are better than they would have been last year or the year before because, like I said, the women's steeplechases, no one's really run ridiculously fast. I think the fastest this year is like 15 seconds or 14, 13 seconds off the world record. So the gap's smaller. But Coburn, she's ran, I think her season's best is 9:13. So that's still 16 seconds behind the season's best of Jacqueline Chepkoech. So in a steeplechase where traditionally people really string out because of where the hurdles are, you don't really want to be running side by side because it gets a bit reckless. The front runners who are pushing the pace, it's where Coburn features in that before the last lap. As if she's a bit further back, then I don't think the chance is really there for a medal. And I do think, again, it's similar story to the 10,000. I think the East Africans are too strong again. However, they might get caught up in a race with each other because they're all so closely grouped together. Will someone not really want to risk losing a medal and taking it out and running to their strengths? If Beatrice Chepkoech is at full fitness, she is the world record holder, she could dominate from the front, but we haven't seen that in recent years from her. So I think it will be a close race. And steeplechase, again, someone might fall, cause people to pile up behind them, and then someone might come through like a Coburn. But for me, I'd probably have to give it to Jacqueline Chepkoech. And I think basically it's going to be exactly where the season's best are in the world lead in that order, to be honest with you. Jacqueline Chepkoech first, Sembo Alemu second, and then Beatrice Shepkovic third.
So to round this preview off, Alfie, we're going to fly through the marathon. Rather than going top three, what I want to know is who you think is going to take the gold, and then a rough finishing time as well. Obviously, championship courses can be a little bit different, and obviously with very minimal information about the Budapest course, whether it's quick or not. But we can still have a bit of fun and poke a time out there. On the men's side of things, I'm going to kick things off with a massive outside chance. I'm just going to go for Tokyo Marathon champion this year. I'm going to go for Chalu Dassault. I think that he's obviously got pedigree to win a major marathon. He's clearly running well this year, and I think that he will run something in and around 204, 205 if the course permits, and I think that he'll take the win there. What do you reckon on the men's side, Alfie? You've got reigning champ Tamarat Tola of Ethiopia. He's the Ethiopians. All four of them have run sub 205 bests. You've got Getachew and Gabriel Selassie as well. So, like, incredible talent there. Is there anyone that you think maybe the Ethiopians or potentially further afield in Kenya or even further afield that could potentially take a win?
I think my money will be on Tola, but then also I think Abdi Nagy of the Netherlands is a good shout as well. I believe he did get a medal either last year or at the Olympics, coached by
it was Olympics.
coached by Gary Locke, and then Bashir Abdi as well got the medal. His training partner. I'm not sure if Bashir Abdi features in this. It's quite a long list of names to go through. Tola last year just dominated from when he took the lead and really completely obliterated the rest of the field. So if he's in that sort of shape again, I can't see anyone beating him. I mean, with the Kenyans and Ethiopians, the marathon is ever changing, and I think there was actually an interview I saw from one of the NM running team members, and someone asked him, "Do you think there's anyone who's as good as Kipchoge?" And he said, "There's many people better than Kipchoge. It's just about the opportunity they have." He thinks there's some Kenyan runners who could run 1:57 in the marathon. So if we see one of those Kenyan runners at the championships, who knows? Maybe that was a false claim, but the marathon, there's so many variables. It's really tough to call. So I'm just going to go with Tola because it's a safe option because he ran so well last year.
On the women's side of things, we've got a whole sea of African athletes that could take the win there. We've got the winner of Tokyo Marathon, Rosemary Wanjiru. She's from Kenya. She's probably their only hope of a win there. But one athlete I'm going to throw out there before you give me your prediction is Kira D'Amato. She's obviously run an American record in the half marathon. Didn't run so well in Eugene last season. She came 8th, but I think her build-up was a little bit challenging. But I think Kira D'Amato could make the podium, man. And once you're in that top three in a championship marathon, anything can happen.
Yeah, I think we see in championship marathons, there's a lot of dropouts. And also, we saw at the Tokyo, Molly Seidel got the bronze. So Americans always are really strong when it comes to championship marathons. We see it with Galen Rupp as well. Like they know how to perform when it matters at a championship. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see an American feature. D'Amato definitely has a shot. And I do think, for me, it ultimately depends on how the race is ran, because a lot of the time in the marathon, if someone tries to run hard from the gun, a lot of people will blow up around them. And that's where you really get the people who maybe aren't as fast as the East Africans, because they seem to dominate definitely the time trials on the marathon. So who aren't maybe as fast, they can come through. I would say my favourite to win is, and this is where I'm going to struggle again, is Yelm Surf Lahula.
Good shout.
Yeah.
Good effort.
The Ethiopian, 2:17. She's run a 2:18 this year. She's one of the fastest half marathon runners ever. She's just a very good pick for me. And so it's hard to judge the marathon, especially because there's so many people who haven't raced this year. You've got Shankul of Ethiopia, who's run a 2:14.58, which is one of the fastest ever. She's not raced this year, but she is racing in this championship. So can the faster runners just work together and pull away? It is doubtful at the championships because, again, you've got the risk of having a medal taken away from you by pushing too hard at the wrong time. So I think it probably will be a slow and tactical race, at least for the first half. So I think anything can happen, but I would say Yelm Surf Lahalo will be my favourite for the win.